Well, huge report to share with you guys today. I honestly believe that Donald Trump's life is in danger, and I think many of you agree with me. I have brought this up before, but in light of new information that has just come out of the mainstream media, the propaganda pieces of the government here in the United States and global government, anyway, these propaganda pieces are spreading shockwaves about Donald Trump. And the reason that I believe they're doing it is because they're seriously afraid that Donald Trump can win in 2024, and they're panicking. So they're bringing out the guns, so to speak, verbally speaking, and they are going and they are saying, well, we know that, Joe Biden doesn't have pretty much a shot because nobody likes Joe Biden, especially with what's going on in the economy. So they're panicking and saying, okay, well, you definitely don't want Donald Trump because he's a dictator, a tyrant. He's going to do things like Hitler. And this is literally the new direction they are taking it now. Whether or not it has an impact in the future, I guess only time will tell. But here's the real truth of it. The articles are very disturbing to me. And I believe that some of them are in a roundabout way, maybe not bluntly or very, they're not being blunt about it, but I believe in a roundabout way. This could lead people to do something really bad to Donald Trump, say assassinate him. And I'm really afraid for his life. We already know Tucker Carlson talked about this a while back. And this is on the Wrap. Tucker Carlson says he fears for Trump's life. We're speeding towards assassination. And that was back in August 2023. And I have to agree with them. But in all reality, the good news is the mainstream media is panicking because they know they've got a bumbling, not all there guy who is running for president, and people are so hurt financially that they're not getting the support that they need, and I believe the votes that they need. So I've got some hope for 2024. I'm sure there's going to be more shenanigans, so to speak, when it gets into the 2024 election. But before I dive in and show you those articles, you gotta make sure you are still subbed to the channel. Hit that sub button, and if you're new, welcome. I'm so glad you guys are here. You're going to love it because you're getting what the mainstream media is not telling you. And so hit that sub button and check your subscription. YouTube likes to nix people sometimes. But with that, get to restrictedrepublic.com if you really want to get into what is truly going on. You have to get off these brainwash controlled platforms right now. Go to Restricted Republic. And we've got a major deal going on, but this is exclusive content that we are not posting on other sites. We post about 5 to 6 videos a week, and you don't only get me, you also get Justice Night on the platform. But get there, subscribe, use the coupon code LISA and the number 5 to get it for $5 per month. But you're not going to want to miss the information we have there, and it really will be a huge mind opener, and it comes with a 14-day free trial. All right, so let's start first with the big freak out of the mainstream media and how they are really targeting and going after Trump. And by the way, I see it getting worse from the leftist mainstream media, not better. I think their rhetoric is going to intensify. That is my prediction. Take a look here. This is on New York Times. A big propaganda piece for the left. Why a second Trump presidency may be more radical than his first. Donald Trump has long exhibited authoritarian impulses, but his policy operation is now more sophisticated, and the buffers to check him are weaker. They go on to state that Mr. Trump's violent and authoritarian rhetoric on the 2024 campaign trail has attracted growing alarm and comparisons to historical fascist dictators, holy cow, and contemporary populist strongmen. It goes on that Trump may seem more angry, desperate, and dangerous to American-style democracy than in his first term, but the through line that emerges is far more long-running. He has glorified political violence and spoken admirably of autocrats for decades. Now, let me just hit the pause button on that article. That article from the New York Times says he's authoritarian fascist dictator and he's glorifying autocrats, and hey, he's glorifying political violence. By the way, that is not true. He doesn't I've never heard Donald Trump glorify political violence. But either way, if you're going to talk about admiring autocrats for decades, you don't have to look very far than Joe Biden, Obama, all of which did similar stuff. It's no different. You have to be nice so you don't start a freaking war. But they really are taking things out of context in this New York Times article and exasperating issues to make him look bad. And they're doing that, of course, because they don't want Donald Trump to become president. And the one that they have running for office, Mr. Joe Biden, isn't exactly a person that a lot of Democrats are going to back. Now, this next article is the one by Washington Post, and it really gives me chills. And I'm going to leave it for you to decide, really, are they, really like encouraging some kind of, assassination attempt on the president? I'll let you decide, but this is really chilling to me. Take a look here. This is on the Washington Post. It's opinion piece by Robert Kagan, right? And I'm going to get into who that is in a moment. But a Trump dictatorship is increasingly inevitable. We should stop pretending like there's not going to be a dictatorship. There wasn't a dictatorship the first time. I don't believe it's going to happen the next time. He's going to get into office if he makes it, and he is going to do things hopefully better than he did the first time. And some of those things include, as a president, you go through your cabinets, you fire a bunch of people, and I hope he fires a majority at the FBI and the DOJ and these offices and really cleans house, because we have political biases in those agencies. And he has every right to do that as the president of the United States, as do other presidents, right? But anyway, back to this article. I'm sidetracking. Now, on the surface level, just reading the title doesn't sound like there's any issue with that. However, when you look at this big picture right next to my head, who do you have at the top? Well, you have Julius Caesar, and then you have Donald Trump's face at the bottom. Now, it is this picture that really chills me to the core. Why? Well, let's go back to what happened to Julius Caesar. As a quick reminder, most of you probably know, but on March 15th, 44 BC, Julius Caesar was assassinated. Who was he assassinated by? Well, the dictator of Rome was stabbed to death by dozens of his senators. So why would you put a picture of Julius Caesar, who was stabbed to death by senators, and put that on the bottom of Donald Trump? That is what chills me to the very core. Is that what they're calling for? I don't know. God, I hope not. But I'll leave that ultimately for you to decide and your kind of take on that. But you shouldn't do this for anyone, right? No one. I am against violence. I say that all the time on my channel, and this is not how we should handle political politics. Now, in case you're wondering who this Robin Kagan is, just as a quick reminder, Glenn Greenwald pointed this out, and he says Robert Kagan is Victoria Nuland's husband and is the neocon who worked with Bill Kristol to lie the country in multiple wars. His job is now, well, he's a Washington Post editor where he writes hysterical articles about how Trump this time will be a real dictator. So in other words, Victoria Nuland, probably a name you've heard before if you followed me on restrictedrepublic.com, but she's not a good person. Not a good person. Done some pretty horrible stuff. In fact, Ron Paul, I believe it was, put out an entire report on her before she, was brought back in. And here's Ron Paul Institute: why Victoria Nuland is dangerous and should not be confirmed. Absolutely. Absolutely. And now it's her husband that's putting this Julius Caesar on Donald Trump's head. But speaking of, how about a little bit more verbiage from The Atlantic, who cue the literal freak out from the mainstream media. I've got about, I don't know, maybe 10 articles to show you from The Atlantic where they're just literally Trump bashing. I'm going to go through these quick. Maybe it'll bring a smile to your face, but this is sheer panic. Take a look here. The Atlantic: if Trump wins, the staff of The Atlantic on the threat a second term poses to American democracy. Dun, dun, dun. They always talk about how democracy is at stake. No, it's not. In fact, it is with Mr. Biden. But let's go on and cue the panic, because this comes, this is kind of the letterhead of all these additional stories in there. Let's cue. First of all, the danger ahead. If Donald Trump returns to the White House, he'd bring a better understanding of the system's vulnerabilities, more willing enablers, and more focused agenda of retaliation against his advisors. You mean like Joe Biden did? But I digress. They're totally different people. And then we have The Atlantic, of course, the spectator of a family separation. Donald Trump and his allies have promised to restore their draconian zero-tolerance immigration policies. Let's just hit the pause button. Joe Biden has put families and kids in cages as well. Every president has. In fact, Obama started putting them in cages, and yet they're acting like Joe Biden hasn't done that. But let's move on. Then we have the loyalists, the lapdogs, and the cronies. And in a second term, Trump, there would be no adults in the room. They're just a bunch of babies and kids. Here's another one. Trump will abandon NATO. I actually think that we should. Maybe some of you might disagree with me on that, but that's what I'm okay with that. Let's move on. How Trump gets away with it. If elected, he could use the powers of the presidency to evade justice and punish his enemies. You mean just like Joe Biden is doing? I can't help but think that Joe Biden's name should actually be here. But let's go on. 4 more years of unchecked misogyny in a second Trump term. Women are once again going to be target. I don't feel that I'm a target under Trump. I mean, I don't know. If you do, comment below. I'm curious, but I sure the heck don't. That's just crazy talk. Then we have The Atlantic. The climate can't afford another Trump presidency. His approach to the environment, he just ignores it. Let me just put it this way. They don't have a green enough system to completely uproot ours. And Donald Trump knows that. If they put in their zero tolerance, we're all dead. We're all dead. Oh, we're going to go to zero tolerance. But hey, we don't have the appropriate power system in place to change our entire system. And hey, by the way, we don't even have enough electricity. If all of us had an electrical vehicle and we plugged it into our homes, it would completely destroy the power grid, especially if they went green. There wouldn't be one. Well, maybe we should think of some things that actually work before we move on. I'm sorry, I get a little bit tepid about that. So thank you, Donald J. Trump. Moving on a little bit. That one's definitely not Joe Biden. Is journalism ready? The press has repeatedly fallen into Donald Trump's trap. A second term could render it irrelevant. This is funny because this is coming from a so-called journalist. And then we have Trump's polarization of science is bad for everyone. He doesn't comply to what we want. Here we have corruption unbound. Donald Trump and his crony left his first administration with a playbook for self-enrichment in a second term. Again, that's this is Biden too. Or not, I wouldn't say too, because I do not see this from Trump at all. He has been hardcore on China, not Joe Biden. Why Ye wants Trump to win. Ye does not want Trump to win. Just going to put that in my out loud voice. I don't believe that for a second. A second Trump term would allow China to cement its grip on the developing world. That could absolutely read Joe Biden and Joe Biden solely. And then, of course, a MAGA judiciary. Oh no, Donald Trump could appoint more judges. See the panic? Boom, 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 boom. It's like 10 or so articles. I didn't count them. But they're not only going after Donald J. Trump. The Atlantic thought, hey, it'd be a good idea. Let's go after his followers and the GOP as well. The Atlantic, the Republican Party, is radicalizing against democracy. The GOP is a grave threat to American democracy, the terrifying future of the American right. Why so many conservatives feel like losers? Wait, what? I don't feel like a loser. No, I'm pretty confident in who I am and what I do. I'm very happy with myself. So I think they're just making that up. I don't know a single conservative who feels that way, but it's just an attack from a leftist rag journalist, so-called journalist reporting newspaper. And you know what? Speaking of leftist rags, how about rhinos who love to jump in on the action? Take a look here. This is on USA Today. Liz Cheney says the U.S. would be sleepwalking into a what? Dictatorship if he wins in 2024. You mean Liz Cheney may not like the fact that if Donald Trump gets in, that some of the corruption that happened with their J6 committee, who, by the way, they got rid of all the evidence. Let's just throw that away. Completely illegal. But these senators know that there's not going to be any consequences. So they're just doing whatever they want. But maybe. She just doesn't like that because her dirt would probably surface. Liz Cheney is not a Republican. She's not even close. She's a radical left Democrat. But anyway, there is the panic that has ensued all over the place. Interesting. And by the way, The Atlantic, and I didn't pull up the article just because I want to tell you, put out an article, and the article said that me and you are why inflation is high. I'm going to pull it up. Inflation Atlantic. The Atlantic. Here it is. I got it. Yeah, look at this. The Atlantic. Inflation is your fault. Why is it your fault? Because they can't blame the Biden administration. So how rude. But anyway, they say it's our fault because we're buying goods. Goods that we need to survive, like food, gas. And they go on and say, some expensive things like cars. I mean, we need cars too. We have to drive. But because we're still buying commodities, it's our fault. Why does anybody read The Atlantic? I don't know. They're not going to like me for this video report, which, ergo, is the reason why you should share this report with everyone you know. And again, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and I really hope to see you at restrictorrepublic.com. Anyhow, I love you all. I'm Lisa Haven, signing out.